All right, everyone, welcome back for another episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Thursday, December 2nd, 2021. So market's getting a bit of a bounce today and then a little bit of a dip here into the close. And essentially what we're seeing here is a little bit of skittishness from investors. So we're likely to see some similar type of action tomorrow. I think we see some selling into the weekend as investors are more nervous about potential variance and so on and so forth. They're really kind of nervous about holding into the weekend in case we have a gap down or something like that. Doesn't mean that we'll completely melt down or anything tomorrow, but you can see the VIX remained pretty much in an upright position all day long. If we take a look at the VIX, it was down 10%, but it held this upper range of yesterday's candle. The VXX, kind of just maintained, it held the 100 MA pretty much all day long, went sideways, whereas the market was kind of bouncing back nicely. So you're still seeing some protection being bought as we get closer to the weekend here. So some stocks starting to come in finally. So Apple, for instance, this one was holding the market up. It did roll over, turn red yesterday, had a major gap down today. Did finish almost positive, actually, just finished down 0.61%. So a pretty nice comeback there on Apple, but it was, it did have a pretty big gap down from where the highs were yesterday, almost tagged at 20 MA. AMD finally coming in, these semis coming in, Tesla coming back in a little bit here. So a little bit of selling in some of these higher flyers here as the rest of the market kind of bounces, and these higher flyers take a break. NVIDIA, one of those names. But so the big question here is this a dead cat bounce, or is this a base that we're going to build here? And again, I still think that the top is in. Again, I'm not going to go over that, the MACD thing with the Qs here, but we did trigger a head and shoulders here on the Qs here with a target about 370, which is my year-end target anyway on the triple Qs. So that just kind of adds to that. But essentially, I'm still kind of in the camp that this is probably a dead cat bounce, and the reason for that is really if we go back and look at, say, March, when we had this sell-off in the Qs, and the spiders a little bit, but the Qs were leading. And the same thing in May, we had this little dip, and then we had the dip in September. The one major difference between now and then is the XLE. The XLE was rallying in March, and pulled back a little bit in April, but the same thing in July, August, and September when the market was faltering. XLE was holding up, and then started to break out towards the end of September. Same thing with the XLF. XLF was rallying in March. XLF was rallying in September, so the higher yield wasn't really bothering these names as it shouldn't. The same thing, the small caps, really since August, they bottomed in really July, August, and September. So, and in March, they were holding up very well as well, making new all-time highs. Now, as the triple Qs and the S&P are selling off, we're not seeing strength from those names. Look at the broker dealers coming back in. Have a nice bounce today, but coming off the highs there. Dow Transports. If the Dow Transports cannot gain this regain this green bar low by tomorrow's close, that's a failed breakdown on the Dow Transports. So we're seeing weakness, and we're seeing broad-based selling, and that's the thing that was really lacking from this market. I mean, look at the Dow Transports in March. There's another one. Look at how strong they were in March when we were selling off. Same thing in September. I mean, they were kind of pulling back a little bit, but nothing you would say is a breakdown. But we're seeing broad-based selling now, and that is the key difference. Now, really the last sector here, the only doubt is the semiconductors. So the semiconductors are continuing to hold up. They did close above their 20 MA today, but if they lose this and start to lose these pivots, and everything else is continuing to fade, this market is probably cooked. So this is really the one I'm watching very closely here. The semiconductors are very, very important, but if they lose these, they lose this 20 moving average and they start losing these pivots, it's right back to 275 here on the SMH. So that is going to lead the market lower. Make sure you are paying attention to that. Let's talk about energy here. So crude, nice little dip all the way down to 62.43. Thought it would get a little bit lower, maybe down to that 61.50 handle. But it did get defended here, so probably bottomed out for the near term, and maybe it gets a little bit of a bounce. This is actually starting to look kind of intriguing here to me. Another one that's looking intriguing is nat gas. I would love for a gap down tomorrow in nat gas, because that would be a nice little. I mean, there's a lot of support in this area here on natty. You get that daily 200 moving average. You got the weekly 50 moving average right beneath it. I think there's a fib level. Let's do a quick Fibonacci here. Yeah, so you got a 50% fib retrace. So this is a nice, $4 is a nice little area. You got this green bar, breakout bar. That's a nice area on nat gas. I was looking for this. We go on the daily here. So I was looking for, when we were pulling back here, I was hoping it would get a little bit lower and hit that 100 MA, hit this trend line around 450 because you had that 382. But we bounced, and then we kind of came down. I was like, yeah, you don't want that level now because we already bounced and kind of consolidated there. But now $4, this is looking like a good area. You got that 50% retrace, got that green bar, daily 200 MA, and then just below that, you've got the weekly 50 MA. So if it does start to dip down, you've got more support below that. So that's a good risk reward. A little bit of a freebie there for anybody. But yeah, if this gap's down, I'll probably take that myself. And we'll alert that to the members as well. But nice little action there for nat gas and crude. Again, just going over crude again. It's probably bottomed out for the near term. That's a pretty nice tail candle there. I was hoping for, I wanted to get to a little bit lower there before pulling the trigger myself, but we might have a good chance to get in on nat gas if we can get a gap down. In any case, let's talk about yields. So yields just kind of backing and filling again, getting a bit of a dead cat bounce. Really right now, the TLT is kind of what everybody's watching. So this 152-ish area, and that's more reflective of the 30-year. So 30-year kind of leading yields lower. That one is a little bit more less shorted than the 10-year. But in any case, I still think yields are just backing and filling here. There's nothing really to do with them right now. Let's talk about the dollar. Again, another thing, backing and filling. Maybe you can make a case for a little drop and pop there. So you got extended, came down, kissed that 20 MA, now getting a bid off of that. But I ultimately think the dollar will have to do some back end filling, probably at least until the end of the year. And then it can start advancing. And I think you can get up to, maybe even 99 before it really encounters major resistance. But yeah, dollar just kind of hanging in there right now. Let's look at gold. So gold lost this little trend line here. I don't think this trend line is super major, but it is important to note that it did kind of lose that. Now it still has tomorrow. If it rallies back up, you could make a case that, let's see, let's put it back on here. You can make a case that you held it on a weekly basis if we can close above it tomorrow. But really there's, I get a lot of questions about gold, and there's just not, I need to see it either get below, this 16, the year-to-date low, or above, if it can get back above 1880, I think then that's, if we make a higher high, basically, then I can say, okay, well, it's going to break out and it's going to go to 1960, and then, we'll evaluate from there. But until it does one thing or another, like it's been in a range for quite a while, and we've gotten faked out, twice now. It's really hard to position yourself from a swing trading standpoint. Now, longer term, if you want to start accumulating in these levels, that's one thing. But it's really tough to do anything with this as a swing trading basis. And the same thing with silver right now. It is looking attractive. I mean, from a contrarian standpoint, it does kind of look cheap here. But again, we had this, as soon as we had this failed head and shoulders, I was like, yeah, I know it's gonna go lower here. And this should have been good support. I'm surprised it didn't bounce here. So it's not really showing a lot of strength to me right now. But it can change. If it can make a higher low and reclaim that 100 MA, then maybe things are back in play. But again, it's same kind of deal. It's range bound, and the same thing. So platinum, really, I think this is going lower as well. And palladium looks like, again, it looks like it's kind of flagging here, possibly bearish. Now, if it fails this and starts to break upward, then it probably rips faces off. But as of right now, there's nothing to do on a swing trading basis with the metals here. Any case, I'm going to wrap it up here. Overall, just watch the semiconductors. That's going to tell you everything about where this market is going, because the XLF, it is still holding on here, but the XLF, the XLE, we are seeing broad-based selling here, and I want to see if those semis roll over, then this market probably rolls over. And watch for pattern here on the daily, on the SPY. If we start going sideways, that's telling you we're going to build a bear base. But if you're bullish, you want to see this market recover now. You want to see a strong close Friday. You want to see it close near the highs of yesterday by the end of the day tomorrow, and that would give you a pretty good weekly candle, because I mean that would be a big tail candle. So, but we did break this down. If we look on the SPX, you can see it a little bit better. Last week we closed below this green bar low, so I mean that's a failed bullish pattern there. So tomorrow's close will be important, and it will tell you how aggressive investors are going into the weekend. But anyways, guys, take care, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.